Yeah, yeah. Let's have a chat. Okay, are you okay? You start. Okay for me to start?
Go for it.
All right.
Recording in progress.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Business Spotlight. My name is Reza Kousoulou. I'm delighted to be joined today by Garry from Loving Social Media.
That's me.
Hi, Garry. Welcome. It's great to have you with us today.
It's nice to be asked to be interviewed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Gary, to get us kind of started, uh, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your business, and what is it that you do?
Sure. Historically, my grandfather came to this country in the 30s from a Cypriot background. My grandmother raised a pig, a little piglet. It was £10 to get on a boat to come to the UK, and they bought a little piglet. They raised that piglet to be a big pig, and my grandfather came here with £10 in his pocket and nothing else other than skills of tailoring. So he was a hot, Savile Row tailor. Did very well for himself. My parents were. My dad was an electrician. He's self-employed for a little bit, so I learned a little bit about entrepreneurship from these two, and work ethic. I never saw them not work. Sundays, Saturdays, always working. So for me, coming from an ethnic background with work at its core has really made me the man I am. Maybe 20 odd years ago, I was diagnosed with a disease called multiple sclerosis, and it's a pretty bad thing to be diagnosed with. The nurse said to me, "Look, stop working for other people, make your own fortune." And at the time, I was a qualified optician, and I opened my own opticians. I didn't really know much about marketing or finance or operations. I didn't know anything about bookkeeping, but I knew how to be a good optician. So I was a bit interested in insolvency. And people said, why are you interested in why you fail?" And I said, well, if you learn why you fail, you reverse engineer it and you avoid those mistakes. So
Interesting.
in
Yeah.
2004, I was just recently diagnosed with MS. I saw an empty shop that was opposite a train station. Thought, this is perfect. And started from complete scratch, an optician from scratch. I solved the bookkeeping problem with my uncle had just retired from Haringey Council he was the FD there. So he had some cash, he had some knowledge, he looked after the finance side of things. I knew nothing about marketing, so I took out 6 books, and those 6 books did me very well. I then went on a journey of studying marketing to the point where last year and this year I am the judge of this year's Business Book Awards for marketing. So
Wow.
I try and read one marketing book every fortnight. I go through them very quickly because they're really just rejuvenating something from another book. But that's interesting. So there's me. I built this business to 1.5 million through acquisition. I then decided that through some bad partnerships, really. Had a bad partnership where values weren't aligned. So I
Yes.
started this marketing business. I sold that for £1 million. I started this, didn't own it all, but still an achievement to start from nothing to 1 million.
Sure.
And then this marketing business, it's a roller coaster, but it allows me a lot of freedom. And that's me, a dad of 4. I like to have fun. I'm creative. I love marketing.
Yeah.
Was
Sure.
that an
And so
answer?
you, go on, sorry.
Was that a good answer? I don't know.
There's no good answer. It was an amazing story. Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting. Um, and so, what's been the biggest contributor to your growth? You've alluded to some of it, but what do you think? What would you put that down to?
Well, you go back to that old saying, profit is sanity, turnover is vanity. Like, you can run a business that's 250,000 and take more in your pocket than a 1.5 million pound business. So my learning, like when you talk about growth, I think sometimes there's bad customers, and you just want to avoid these customers, and they end up costing you money. And you have to be at that place to understand what I'm talking about. People might say, yeah, but Garry, like, you're turning over $1 million. What would you prefer? What would you prefer? £1 million business where you just barely take home 40 grand? Or would you prefer £250,000 business where you're taking home 100 grand? There's no comparison. And I think it took me a while. So I think that growth comes along if you just will accept anything, but be cautious with your wish. You want a nice profitable business rather than a big business.
Absolutely.
Well, I would say.
So focusing on the profitability and the right type of clients that I guess gives you the profit and you enjoy working with, right, as well.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's clients that there isn't a good fit, and you're always struggling if the phone rings. Oh no, not them. Like if the phone rings and it's a pleasure to answer the phone. Today we had the client that started at our smallest package, and they said, well, if we pay you £200, imagine what it would be like if we paid you more and more and more. And he recommended us to somebody else, and it's wonderful to get recommendations from a client, and that's what you'll find. They become assets to clients rather than liabilities. They're always driving you mad.
And if you were to do it all over again, could talk to a younger version of yourself 10, 15 years ago, what would you say? What would you do differently?
Well, you only learn by mistakes. So probably most of the mistakes were really great learning curves.
Sure.
I'd be more confident. I've always had partners. Now I don't need partners, but before, in my 30s and 40s, I always felt that I needed the crutch of a partner. If you're watching this and you're thinking, well, I'm safer with a partner, sometimes it can be less safe, to be honest. Go your own way, make your mistakes, figure it out. I speak to many entrepreneurs. They say, oh, my wife's pregnant, not the right time. I haven't bought a house, not the right time. There's never a right time. Do it. I opened my business when my wife was heavily pregnant with our first son, and it just made me more determined.
Yeah, absolutely. Give you an extra reason to succeed. And as you said, there's never a right time, is there? And so, talking about employees and people that you take on, recruitment is often the biggest challenge for people. How do you find it? How do you get the right people?
I am so lucky because I love people. Human resources is my favorite. Of all the things, all the disciplines, management is my favorite. So you need to hire slowly, fire fast. You need to constantly show that you care. Can I ask you a question? How many times have you rented a car?
Quite a few times when I've gone on holiday, yeah.
How many times have you washed the car that you rented?
None.
Never. We don't wash things that we don't care about. We don't look after them. And this is very much about, as a boss, you need to look after your staff so they look after you. There's a line, you can never be their friend because you might have to fire them. Today I fired someone and I feel really bad about that. But I was very upfront. I said, if we don't reach this level of turnover by this time, I can't keep you on. We just missed out by a small amount, but I kept my word. I said, if we don't reach that point, I can't employ you. And that's tough. And you can't do that when you're friends. So look after people. If you don't know what this is, please invest time to listen to it. It's called performance development reviews. Do them constantly, do them well. Don't just do them to tick a box. And you get the vibe. I'll give you a tip, a quick hack. If mum, always on interviews, if you feel comfortable, ask what mum and dad do. And if mum and dad are entrepreneurs themselves, if they own a shop, if they're entrepreneurs, you generally get a person that has that work ethic. It's not always worked, but it's interesting to see if they have that work ethic. And usually your first instinct is probably right. But you need to ask people to leave before probation's over, or at least guide them and say, look, this is exactly what I want. If they can't reach that, they're not for you.
Okay, that's very interesting perspective and approach. Yeah. So, where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? You see yourself, the business.
Hmm. Well, very pragmatic. A man generally lives to 75 in England, and if you have MS, you live 15 years shorter than most people, so that's 60. So that gives me a very different perspective on life than somebody who's well and doesn't have this ticking thing in my head. So where I want to be, I'm probably being a landlord has bored me always. So I probably will invest my money in property to have a nice residual income, so I don't have to sit on the hustle, on the grind, which a business is usually. I'm more comfortable running a business than I am as a landlord. So I probably will move my money into property. I don't like shares too much, but yeah, probably less staff, less running around, less hours, and enjoying life a little even more with I'd say with my wife, travel more. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, absolutely. Really good advice. And is there any questions that you wish I'd asked, or something that you want to add?
Yeah, I think I specialize in resilience. If there's tough days that you go through when you're in business, and then you dust yourself down and you go again. My advice to everyone watching this is if you cannot be an entrepreneur unless you have an element of resilience. You have a bad day at home, you go to work, your staff let you down, the Wi-Fi goes. There will be 1,000 things that go wrong in your day. I can guarantee you that. And it's how you handle that, how you get back into your positive mental attitude, how you try and surround yourself with great people. And when you win, like today we got 2 new clients. We lost a client, but then we gained 2 new ones. I'm not going to... I think about the one that I lost, but the small wins are just keep hold of them, try and be around positive people, and you'll get through the tough times. I hope that made sense.
No, absolutely. Some really great shares and great advice for anyone wanting to start a business or indeed kind of who's already in business. Thank you very much, Gary, for today. Really enjoyed our
Me
conversation.
too. Thanks for
It was
asking me.
great to get your insight into the subjects that we talked about. And I wish you success for the rest of your journey.
Thank you.